welcome to HITC Sport. Right, today I'm going to take a look at every Premier League club's worst manager of the last 20 years and find the best signing they made for your club. You know, one of the things they actually got right. Arsenal, UNAI Emery, Bernd Leno. It seems a bit unfair to label UNAI Emery the worst Arsenal manager of the Premier League era, considering he's only there less than 18 months and still got them to the Europa League final. But lads, his last 6 months was such a laughable meltdown of epic proportions. It's where the team was being coached by your comatose Gren. He did make some decent signings though, and Bernd Leno, a £22.5 million arrival from Bayer Leverkusen. Sure, it took him a while to break into the team, but considering the other cardboard cutouts he has in his defence, fellas with about as much concentration as a hyperactive squirrel, he's honestly one of the most assured goalies they've had in years. Aston Villa, Roberto Di Matteo, Jonathan Kodja. Okay, yes, I know Remy Gard was Aston Villa's worst ever manager. Christ, this was a guy clearly bored without a shred of motivational skill in his entire body, but he also wasn't allowed to make transfers. Judging by his overall incompetence, I wouldn't even trust him to use a pair of scissors. He'd probably somehow stick it up his nose. So I'll go for Champions League winner Roberto Di Matteo, who was seemingly hell-bent on proving to every man, woman and child on planet Earth that yes, that Bayern win in 2012 was a complete and utter fluke. During his 18 games as Villa boss in late 2016, he demonstrated a complete lack of coaching skill, but hey, did bring in Jonathan Kodja from Bristol City, who went on to score nearly 20 goals that season, so not bad I guess. Bournemouth, Paul Groves, Lewis Graben. Yeah, during Eddie Howe's quick fling with Burnley back in 2011, they really didn't know who to appoint in the meantime. Paul Groves, the current assistant boss of Maccabi Haifa, for some reason he was given the job, and he failed in embarrassing fashion, but he did sign Lewis Graben from Rotherham, who went on to be one hell of a goal scorer for the Cherries, well, in the lower leagues anyway. And this was before he started stapling pubes to his chin. Brighton, Sami HYYRIA, David Stockdale. Yeah, just like Di Matteo, there was hype around Sami HYYRIA when he swapped Germany for the championship. After all, this was a Champions League winning centre half who done well as manager Bayer Leverkusen. He swiftly shoved that hype right down the back of the fridge, winning just 6 of his 26 games as Brighton boss. He was brought in to get them promoted. He almost had them sentenced to League One, but he did drag in David Stockdale at Fulham's bench, who did keep goal for 139 games and helped them to promotion in 2017. Burnley, Brian Laws, Dean Marney. Don't get it wrong, Brian Laws at Burnley was incompetence to the extreme, appointing his former Scunthorpe boss halfway through their debut Premier League season, tasking him to inspire the lads to safety. He had been better off giving the job to the bastard tea lady. The club sank like a stone, being relegated without a whimper, and he was unable to inspire them in the championship either, before being given the boot in December. How this man lasted nearly a year as a Burnley boss, I have no earthly idea. He did sign Dean Marney though, scooping him out of Hull City in the summer 2010. This former piece of Spurs benchwarming fluff, he went on to play over 200 times in Burnley's midfield, helping them to promotion twice. Last I heard he was warming Fleetwood Town's bench, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was locked in Vize's basement. Chelsea, Andre Villas-Boas, Juan Mata. Maybe a bit harsh to call Andre Villas-Boas the worst Chelsea manager, but I genuinely believe he was. If you sack a double winning Carlo Ancelotti in the Everton toilets, you better have some elite level coach lined up to replace him. Sure, AVB had just won the Europa League with Porto and Dublin, but Tippy came as the second coming of Mourinho. Better yet, why not just not sack Josie in the first place, instead of hiring the guy who used to put out the cones in training? Villas-Boas' reign was ugly. By March he lost 7 league games, had the club on the verge of a Champions League exit at Napoli, he tried to drop the spine of the team, it was a complete and utter disaster. But he had signed Juan Mata from Valencia for £23.5 million in the summer, a Spanish midfielder who wanted to have 3 trophies and be voted Player of the Year 2 seasons running. Crystal Palace, Frank de Boer, MAMADOU, SAKHO. Okay listen, Frank de Boer was only at Crystal Palace for 4 bastard games, and all his signings were complete and utter flops. I know MAMADOU Sakho has been a £23 million disaster since arriving from Anfield, but who else am I gonna pick? De Boer also brought in £8 million defender Jairo Riedewald, a guy about as much use as a broken toaster. Who else? Dion Curtis, some 4th choice goalie from Peterborough? There's nobody else I can pick, so yeah, let's say Sakho. Even though when he's not soaking up wages in the treatment room, he's forgetting how to use his feet on the pitch. Everton, Marco Silva, Richarlison. Christ above lads, what was the big fuss about Marco Silva? Honestly lads, the Everton board almost moved heaven and earth to get him out of Watford, and then when he finally rocked up at Goodison Park, fresh from the Dole queue, it was just a complete and utter mess. If you're given 60 games in charge of a team bankrolled by a billionaire, you should not be losing 24 of those games, including the Derby 5-2. So Everton fans probably wish they never hear the name Marco Silva again, but he did bring in £40 million Brazilian flair Richarlison for Watford, who's since proven to be the most exciting talent since Wayne Rooney. Leicester, Ian Holloway, Matt Oakley. Look, Ian Holloway is a decent manager, despite him currently not being able to do any better than Grimsby Town, but during his 8 months in charge of Leicester, during the 07-08 season, he was a mess. Had you told me then, when he sentenced this big club to League One football, tell me then that within 2 years he'd be guiding tiny little Blackpool into the Premier League, I'd be calling the men in white coats. So he didn't do much right at the King Power, but his mid-season signing of Matt Oakley in January 2008, rescued midway through Derby County's hilariously terrible season. He went on to play nearly 150 games for the club, captained them to promotion back to the Championship, Yeah, good signing. But Christ above, the 07-08 season, Oakley spent the first half of the campaign winning just one game at the most laughable Premier League outfit to ever exist, and he spent the second half getting relegated to League One. He probably spent the summer of 2008 stuffed in therapy. Liverpool, Roy Hodgson, Raul Meireles. Okay lads, Roy Hodgson really didn't do much right as Liverpool boss. It was Euro 2016 levels of ineptitude. Most of his signings were complete and utter mid-table duds. I suppose Raul Meireles was the best of them. An £11.5 million Raul from Porto. No, he didn't write his name in the history books, and he only lasted one season at Anfield, but I mean, he went on a goal-scoring run, was voted the fans player of the year, and got a move to Chelsea, so not bad. Man City, Stuart Pearce, Joe Hart. Stuart Pearce was a top all-action player. As a manager, he seemed to leave his brain on the coffee table each and every morning. This was the same guy who, when he was interim England caretaker boss, made Scott Parker the captain over, you know, the guy who captained Milan Barca and Jimmy Traore to Champions League medals. It's the same guy who, while City manager, stuffed David James up front instead of John Mackett, an actual centre-forward with working feet. Under Pearce, City were a miserable mid-table outfit who went 6 months without scoring a goal at home, but he did sign a teenage Joe Hart from Shrewsbury in the summer 2006, a guy who'd gone to play nearly 350 games, win 4 Golden Gloves, 2 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, and save a penalty from Lionel Messi. Yeah, I bet you never thought you'd see a Stuart Pearce decision stamped on the title-winning team. Man United, David Moyes, Juan Mata. Yeah, for some reason, Juan Mata just gets signed by each club's worst ever manager. Anyway, David Moyes was a laughing excuse for a successor to Sir Alex Ferguson at Old Trafford, and while his 8-month reign of terror was largely incompetent, he did bring in club record signing Juan Mata from Chelsea. No, the Spaniard hasn't quite lived up to Chelsea standards, but he's played over 250 times, scored nearly 50 goals. It's not amazing, but it's decent. Newcastle, Steve McClaren, Andros Townsend. For whatever reason, Steve McClaren was the only manager trusted with the most cash to spend at Newcastle under Mike Ashley. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like giving your credit card to a drunken toddler. Considering every single player he signed wound up relegated at the end of the season, I can't really call any of them roaring successes. I'll go for Andros Townsend instead, a £12 million last roll of the dice from Spurs, who yeah, only lasted 4 months, but he chipped in with 4 goals in 13 games as they really stayed up. Norwich, Bryan Gunn, Grant Holt. You can't find many more disastrous managerial reigns than this. Bryan Gunn, a former Canaries goalkeeping legend, was hired as boss in January 2009. He quickly got them relegated to League One, and then in their first game back in English football's 3rd tier, they conceded 7 goals home to Colchester. No wonder he was immediately sacked. Had they left him in charge any longer, he'd probably have somehow burnt the stadium to the ground. He did sign Grant Holt from Shrewsbury though, a hustling centre-forward who scored over 70 goals for the club as they got promoted twice, even netted over 20 in the Premier League. One of the most important signings in this club's recent history, and it was made by a man who seemed to have a brain made of glue. Sheffield United, David Weir, Jose Baxter. Listen, David Weir was a top footballer for Everton and a reliable centre-half, but never in a million years was he cut out for management. Given the job at Bramall Lane in June 2013, he lasted less than 6 months. Never mind promotion from League One. Under him, they were headed for League Two, losing 6 games in a row against the likes of Bradford, Rotherham and Carlisle. Christ above. He did sign Josie Baxter from Oldham Athletic though, a fellow who go on to smash home 20 league goals in 93 games, before he had his problems. Southampton, Mauricio Pellegrino, Mario Lemina. Oh, Mauricio Pellegrino. Usually Southampton have a knack for appointing good managers. He most definitely was not and almost had them relegated, winning just 8 of 34 games. He was absolute rubbish. His only saving grace was that he did sign Mario Lemina from Juventus for 15 million quid, who proved to be a half-decent signing in Southampton's midfield, I guess. Tottenham, Juande Ramos, Luka Modric. It's harsh labelling Juande Ramos Tottenham's worst manager when he's the only one to win them a trophy since 1999. How ironic can you get? Let's not forget though, aside from a half-decent cup run, he was absolutely putting standard. Had he been left in charge any longer, Tottenham would have spent the 09-10 season stuffed in the Bastard Championship, and Gareth Bale would have probably been dumped on the doorstep of Birmingham City for about 3 million quid. But it wasn't all bad. As well as the trophy, Ramos also signed Luka Modric from Dynamo Zagreb for 16.5 million quid, and we all know how good he turned out. Watford, Walter Mazzarri, Roberto Pereira. To be fair, Walter Mazzarri isn't a terrible manager, he just couldn't speak English, and I'm not sure the power of mind was ever going to work on Troy Deeney. In his only season as Watford boss, he finished 17th in the league before being quickly shoved out the door. He did bring in Roberto Pereira from Juventus though, an attacking midfielder who's already played over 100 games for the club and chipped in with 17 goals. No, it's not outstanding, but still, I'd call him a good signing. West Ham, Avram Grant, Winston Reid. I'm not sure why the West Ham owners ever thought hiring Avram Grant would work well. He has all the motivation of a soggy pudding. He only lasted a year at West Ham, finished bottom of the league yet again, but hey, it did sign New Zealand centre-half Winston Reid from FC Midtjylland for just 1 million quid. Honestly, one of the biggest bargains in this club's recent history. Wolves, Walter Zenga, Roman Sass. Okay, Dean Saunders sunk Wolves to League One, so you could pick him as the worst manager, but he wasn't really allowed to sign anyone either. I'll go with Walter Zenga, hired as Wolves boss in July 2016, sacked in October. He did bring in Roman Sass from Angers though, a French midfielder who, to be fair, has held his own in a sparklingly talented Wolves midfield. Over 130 games, promotion, European football. Yeah, good signing. Anyway, that's it, lads. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.